This video was brought to you by this comment. Titania / Prime. So Titania is probably one of the few warframes that massively benefits from the massive amounts of enemies that spawn in the Steel Path. What do I mean? Here we are in the simulacrum with Titania, and basically the idea is we spawn a bunch of enemies like so, and then we press 1. We can press 1 again somewhere. Ah, here we go. Like so. And even though these guys are not Steel Path Corrupted Heavy Gunners, that's okay. This is pretty representative of the experience of Titania players in the Steel Path. And when the Spellbound is over, we can press 1 again to put them all in a Spellbound, which is really, really good. Hell, you can even put a friggin' lantern there as well if you feel like you really want to do it. I don't really use it all that much, but that's okay. At least it still serves some form of a purpose, so that's really, really good. For example, we have this one dude right here who's basically not going to do anything. Great, awesome. Let's kill all of these guys. And I do believe that's everyone. So let's have a look at the build that I am using with Titania. Now you may want to brace yourself because this build is actually going to involve 2 mods that I have been seeing a lot of people ask me to use on mag, which I just won't because Umbral sunk cost fallacy. But anyway, here is the build that we are using with Titania. So the 2 mods that I'm talking about are Quick Thinking, Prime Flow. Yeah, we're using that particular combo in this build, and that is because Titania has a really, really effective way of getting energy. It's called Spellbound Harvest. So that's my rule. If a warframe has a really, really good way of getting energy, I have no real problem using Prime Flow / Quick Thinking. Because of the gigantic amount of enemies that spawn, not only is there more opportunity for energy orbs to spawn as drops, but also more enemies to get Spellbound Harvested, which is really, really good. Obviously, if D could actually give this a little bit of a buff so that it could actually give more energy, if say 8 enemies get Spellbound, that'd be great, but I don't really see that happening, but that's okay. So otherwise, everything else should be really, really self-explanatory. We go for Growing Power, which is why I am using the Scourge as my primary weapon, because it's really, really good. I might do a Scourge video later on, but otherwise, Power Drift, Transient Fortitude for that power strength, Stretch for that power range, obviously, Streamline, Prime Continuity. This should all be really, really self-explanatory. And of course, we're going to be using the almighty Razorwing Blitz, because I still maintain that Razorwing Blitz is probably one of the greatest augments in the game. And as per usual, we're using Arcane Pistolier because Arcane Pistolier on Titania is absolutely fantastic. This actually makes Dex Pixia potentially stronger than Peacemaker in the Steel Path. And let's have a look at our Dex Pixia build. Here is the Pixia build that I am using. Now there is a very specific thing to do with this Pixia build that actually changes depending on what kind of enemies we are facing. So if I'm going up against infested or Grineer enemies, i.e. just normal missions in the Steel Path, then I would use a build like this. Corrosive Heat seems to be the way to go against both Grineer and infested, because armor and infested health, they seem to be really, really susceptible to corrosive and heat damage. Whereas if I were to go against something like Corpus enemies with their shields, then I'm going to have to make a few changes. The first thing is to actually move this particular mod right here so that we have toxin damage. And then the second thing is to type in magnetic and then change this to magnetic damage, because then obviously we are churning through any shields that the Corpus enemy has, but we're also using that toxin damage to basically bypass shields and also attack their health at the same time. There are some enemies that have less shields than they do health, for example the Amalgam Hecates, which we can actually go up against right now. Let's go up against some Amalgam Arca Hecates. So I'm missing one. So with the magnetic damage, we can burn through all of their shields, which is great. And in the meantime, while we're burning through their shields, if we can actually take out their health at the same time, then we will do so with the we'll do so with the toxin damage. But otherwise, the way is that in Steel Path Corpus missions, being able to do both at the same time seems to at least massively help against these enemies. Otherwise, standard means apply. Basically, the idea is to do as much damage as possible to try and kill them as quickly as possible. There are some enemies that have tons of shields and less health, for example, anti-mowers, so at that point, they are really susceptible to the toxin damage that's really good. Whereas these guys, being a little bit tankier, you kind of want to have as much damage as you can, and also being able to punch through those shields as quickly as possible is probably the way to go. So that's pretty much it. Now the big question is, what kind of combination of elements would I use against the corrupted enemies who have both armor and shields and infested health as well? I'm not entirely sure. Let me know which you would go for in the comments. Viral is probably a good choice, but the reason why I'm specifically avoiding Viral at the moment is because Viral procs will actually be underperforming against corrosive procs against that level of armor. So that's basically it. Now my final thoughts about Titania is that pretty much she is really good in survival missions. She's really good in defense missions. Basically endless missions, that's her jam, because endless missions spawn an endless amount of enemies, and the endless amount of enemies, as long as they are in a decent amount of concentration, that will actually give her a lot of energy. Whereas missions that have a sparse amount of enemies, for example, capture missions, rescue missions, I actually find that Titania struggles in that, because basically as long as she has energy, not just because quick thinking, but as long as she has energy, she can actually do stuff and therefore survive. Whereas when she doesn't have any energy, oh, it's a bit of a yikesy moment, because you're probably going to end up dying. That's pretty much it. It's the same with her as it is with Mag, in my experience. When I'm out of energy, that's when I'm going to die. So that's pretty much it. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. Is this the kind of build that you would use with Titania? How are you using Titania in the Steel Path? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more WarFrame content, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.